Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Maths Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. Okay, we'll be talking about how do we factorize or solve cubic equations of function using factor theorem and long division. Okay, this is the second method, all right? For this, it's important that you need to review previous video because there are three important topics that you need to know before coming here. So you need to review so when I mean review, go back. I have videos on this. You need to review the concept of factor theorem, how to use the factor theorem. You need to also review the long division, okay? How to use long division. You need to review long division. And also you need to review the factorization methods in quadratic equations. So it's important that you review these three things before you come to this video, all right? Before you proceed, make sure you know how to use the factor theorem. Make sure you know how to use the long division and all the factorization methods. And if you have anyone that you're not sure, all right, just let me know, send me an email or comment. I'm going to explain that to you. But the factor theorem is one of the factor theorem and long division. I have a video series on that. While the factorization method, you can find that with the quadratic equations, all right? And also, if you've not shared, like, or subscribe, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please don't forget to do that and click the notification bell. So when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. All right, just a quick reminder of a cubic function. The first one is that a cubic function is usually in the form of ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d is equal to 0. So this is usually referred to as the standard form, all right? This is usually referred to as the standard form, all right? And usually when we use this method, okay, this method mostly usually works, okay? We usually use this method when d is not equal to 0. So when the d is not equal to 0, okay, that's when we usually use this method to solve, all right? So let's get straight into it. In order to solve this, there are 8 steps or 8 rules to solve this question, all right? How do you solve it? There are 8 steps or rules. Now, the first thing that you have to do is that you have to ensure that the cubic function has a constant, all right? So that means when I say constant, that means the free term, that is d is not equal to 0. So I'm going to be writing it. So ensure the cubic function. So you have to ensure that the cubic function has a constant. All right. So that means d is not equal to 0. All right. So and you only know this after you've written it in the standard form. Okay. So you know this after writing it. Okay. All right. So after writing this in the standard form, that's the first thing to do. So after you've written it in standard form, the next thing you have to do is that you have to then identify what? D. So what is the D in the cubic function? So you have to identify D. So yeah, so this is writing. So after writing the equation in the standard form. All right. So when you're done with that, step 3, you then have to find all the factors of D. So you have to find all the factors of D. So when we talk about factors, so these are numbers that can divide D without a remainder. All right. So when we say factors, these are numbers that can divide a particular number without a remainder. All right. So when you've done finding all the factors of D, then you then have to now plug in each of the factors into the original equation to see which of them will give you 0. So basically, you are applying the factor theorem here, okay? So you now plug in each of the factors. into the original equation. And see, okay? So when you plug it, you have to put it and see which will give you, okay? Which will give you 0. Okay? So please, when you're done with this, so this is basically, we got this from the factor theorem. So basically, we're referring to the factor theorem here, all right? So please, if you've not reviewed the factor theorem, please go back and have a look at it. It's go to the playlist, search for factor theorem, then watch the video on that. So number 5. So when you've now found a factor out of the factors of D that will give you 0, number 5 then is that you have to then rewrite the factors from step 4, all right, by taking the value to the side of X, okay? So then you have to then rewrite the factor from step 4 by taking, all right, the value to the side of X. So basically, I'm going to solve an example. What I'm just trying to say, so if, for instance, X is equal to 1, all right, if, for instance, we had X is equal to 1 as a factor, you basically take the 1 to meet X, it's going to become X minus 1, all right? So that means the factor here is going to become X minus 1. So that's what I'm just trying to say. But don't worry, I'm going to solve an example for this. Then when you're done with that, step 6 is that you then have to now divide the original question with the answer from step 5 using the long division method, all right? So you can now, I think I should write this in a new page. So number 6, you then have to then divide, all right? You now divide the original question. So the original question, I'm basically referring to the original cubic function. So that means the cubic function we have here, okay, the original one, you now divide it with the answer. You divide it with the answer from step 5. Using long division. So that is the reason I asked you and I requested that you need to make sure before you go further in this video, make sure you know how to use the long division and make sure you've reviewed the factor theorem. It's very important that you know how to do this method, okay? It's very important you know how to do this. Now, because the number let me say the divisor you're using here is a factor. The remainder after this long division must give you 0, okay? So the remainder must be 0 because you're using a factor here. So the remainder after long division, okay, will be 0, okay? So you have to make sure that the remainder after long division you get here must be 0. It has to be 0 because you're using a factor to divide, all right? Now, but one of the things you need to also keep in mind is that during this long division, the quotient, okay? The quotient you're going to get will be a quadratic equation, okay? So you need to notice these two things. So when you are dividing, the remainder must be 0, okay? And also that you also notice that the quotient is also a quadratic what? Equation. Then when you're done, number 7, now we have to then factorize this quotient that we got from step 6, all right, using any of the factorization method. So we have to then factorize the quotient. Okay, You have to factorize the quotient using any of the previously discussed. All right, so I'm writing the previously discussed. We've talked about this in details already. Previously discussed factorization method. So you can use any of them. We talked about common factors, difference of two squares. We talked about trinomials when a is equal to 1, trinomials when a is not equal to 1. And in that, we talked about the Wendy's way. Also, I also showed you how to use the quadratic formula to factorize as well. So please just go back. I have videos series on this. Have a look at it and become conversant with it. Then when you're done, you then have to then combine the answer from step 7. Okay, the answer you get from step 7, and you combine it with step 5. Okay, so you combine the answer from step 7 and step 5. And that is the 8 steps on how to solve or factorize or solve cubic equations or functions. Okay, so when you've combined it, so as usual, like I always say, if you want to, at this point now, you can then equate to 0 to find the value for x if you want to, or you can just leave it in the factorize in the bracket if you're asked to what? Factorize. All right. All right, so let's pick an example here. Okay, let's pick an example and try as much as possible to apply these rules we've just learned here. All right, so let's go. So let's say we have this example, all right? And we're told now let's maybe factorize. Let's assume we're asked to factorize. Factorize x, or let's say 2x cubed. Let's make it interesting. 2x cubed plus 13x is equal to minus 9x squared minus 6. Let's assume we're given this and we're told to factorize. Easy. Just follow the steps. Now, the first thing that we have to do is that we have to ensure the cubic function has a constant after we write it in standard form. I remember the standard form was ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d is equal to what? 0. So basically, we have to take all the elements to the other side so that we can now what? We can now solve. So step 1, so we have 2x cubed plus 13x is equal to minus 9x squared minus 6. We take everything to the other side, it's going to give us 2x cubed. So I'm going to arrange it in descending order. So it's going to be plus 9x squared plus 13x. Then take minus 6 plus 6 is equal to 0. All right? So now this is the standard form. Now step 2 is we then have to what? Identify D. So the D is the number without X, right? So our D here is what? 6. So therefore our D is equal to 6. Number 3 is that we then have to find all the factors of what? D. So all the factors of D are numbers that can divide D without a remainder or numbers that multiply together to give you a particular number, all right? So let's go. Step 3. So we're given or we're told that the factor of 6, okay? So let's look for the factors of 6. So what can you multiply together to give us 6? We have 1 times 6 will give us 6. We can have minus 1 times minus 6 will give us 6. Or you can have 2 times 3 will give you 6. Or you can also say minus 2 times minus 3 will give you 6. So now, based on this now, we can now write all the factors of 6. It will be 1, all right? 6 minus 1 minus 6, 2, 3, minus 2, and what? Minus 3. So all these numbers here are the factors of 6. So all these numbers can divide 6, and there'll be no what? Remainder for that. All right. So now we know the factors of 6. That's step 3. So let's go to step 4. Step 4 now said that we need to now plug each of these factors into the original equation and see which of them will give us what? 0. So the factor theorem. So we'll see which of these numbers is going to give us 0. So that is step 4. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to start with 1. All right. So if x is equal to 1, so I'm going to put 1 into the standard form. So we're going to have 2 into bracket 1 cubed plus 9, 1 squared plus 13, 1 plus 6. And when you solve this in your calculator, you will see the answer you're getting is not 0. So that means 1 cannot be correct. Okay? Because when you do that, you will notice that the answer you get is not 0. So that means 1 cannot be correct. Now let us try, because we've tried 1, let's try minus. So I prefer to try the positive and then the negative of the factor, because just it's easier, you have a higher chance of getting it. For me, I notice I have a higher chance usually. So how about if we say that if x is equal to what? Minus 1. Okay, so it's going to give us 2 into bracket minus 1 cubed plus 9 minus 1 squared plus 13 minus 1 plus 6. And when you solve this, your answer will be what? 0. Are you seeing it? So therefore, a factor for this is x is equal to what? Minus 1. Okay? So the factor for this is x is equal to minus 1. So in this stage, in step 4, it may basically try and error. So you keep trying any of these factors, then you get 1 that will give you the answer for that. All right? The next one, we go to step 5. Now, step 5 now said that you have to rewrite the factor which we got to be x equal to minus 1 by taking the value to the side of x. So we got x to be equal to minus 1. So I'm going to take minus 1 to that side. So therefore, we're going to have x plus 1. Are you seeing it? So that's what will happen. So you take the minus 1 to meet the x, and that become x plus 1. Now, step 6. Now, they said divide the original question with the answer from step 5 using long what? Division. So we're going to divide this, the answer we got here. So we're going to divide the standard form, okay, by this one using long division. All right. So let's go. So step 6. All right. Step 6. We're going to do long division now, and let's see how we do. All right. So let's do the long division now. So we're going to divide 2x cubed plus 9x squared plus 13x plus 6 by this. So we have this. So we're going to put it there. So make sure you go back and watch my video. And I have a video on long division on how to carry out long division. Okay. So plus 13x plus 6. And we're dividing this by what? X plus 1. Okay. So as usual, we'll check if there's any missing term. No missing term. All right. So we're going to solve now. So 2x cubed divided by x will give us 2x squared. 2x squared times this will give us 2x cubed plus 2x squared. All right. We subtract. So 2x squared, 2x cubed minus 2x cubed will give you 0. 9x squared minus 2x cubed will give us 7x squared. We bring down the remaining 2. So we're going to bring down 13x plus 6. We'll start again. 7x squared divided by x will give us 7x. You open the bracket. So the 7 times x will give us 7x squared plus 7x as well. You subtract. This is going to give us 0. Then 13 minus 7 is going to give us 6x plus 6. X and 6x is going to give us plus 6. 6 times 6, you give us 6x plus 6. And when you subtract, this is going to give us 0 and 0. So you can see in step 6, I told you that the remainder after the long division must be what? 0. And now if you look at this, the remainder we have here is what? 0. Also, I told you that the quotient, okay, will be a quadratic equation. And now if you look at the quotient, we're having a quotient of what? 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So then we can now say, when you multiply x plus 1 by 2x squared plus 7x plus 6, the answer you're going to get is going to be 2x cubed plus 9x squared plus 13x plus 6. Good. We go to step 7. Okay. Step 7 now. We then have to factorize the quotient using any of the previously discussed method. Okay. So the quotient I have here is 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So we have 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So like I told you, in this case, with the trinomials when a is not equal to 1, all right? So we're going to look for two numbers. So because a is not equal to 1, I have a video on this. You need to go back and look at it. So we're looking for two numbers that you multiply that will give you 2 times 6. So we have 2 times 6 will give us 12 and 7. Okay? So we're looking for two numbers that you multiply will give you 12. And when you add those two numbers, it will give you 7. And that will be 4 and 3, right? So you come back here and replace it because 4 times 3 will give you 12. 4 plus 3 will give you 7, all right? So then we can now proceed with this, all right? So it's going to become plus 4x plus 3x plus 6. So please, if you've forgotten how to factorize, please go back and have a look. Then we now goes to common factors. What is common between 2x squared plus 4x? We have 2x, and we're left with x plus 2, okay? The next one, when you now have common factor between 3x and 6, and when you have that, it's going to be left with what? What is common between 3x and 6? We're going to have 3, and you now have x plus 2. Similarly, I told you in the video for factorization that these two brackets have to be the same, okay? So you pick one of the representative brackets, you have x plus 2, and the outside elements, you put them in another bracket, we have 2x plus 3. Then step 8 said that you have to now combine the answer from 7 and 5. Okay? So step 5, we already have x plus 1. So basically, what they are asking you to do is that you just add x plus 1 to this. So it's going to be step 8. You're going to have x plus 1. Then we now have x plus 2. And we have 2x plus 3. And this is it. But if, for instance, they ask you to solve for x, okay? Now, if you're just told factorize, you stop here, okay? You just told to factorize, you just stop here. But if you're asked to solve, okay? If you're asked to solve, then you have to then equate each of these to be equal to 0, and that will give you x to be equal to -1. You equate x plus 2 to be equal to 0, so x to be equal to -2. And you equate 2x plus 3 to be equal to 0, and x, then we have 2x will give you -3, okay? You take 3 to the other side, and x is going to be -3/2. So if you're told to solve, your answer will be -1, or -2, or what? -3/2. Are you seeing it? So that's the way we can go about this, all right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick one more example. What I would do is that I'm going to write it down and I want you to solve, all right? Then you pause the video and check if we're going to get the same answer like you did. So let's pick this example here. In this example, we have maybe we are told to factorize or solve, we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. All right. So what I want you to do, I want you to pause the video and I want you to see this and see if you can solve it. All right. So let's solve this together now. So the first one we have is we'll do the first step. So if you look at step one is that you have to ensure that the cubic function has a constant after writing the equation in standard form. So we're gonna write this now and see. So, but the question we have here is already written already in standard form. So we have plus 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay. Now the second step is that we then have to then identify D. So we're gonna identify D now. So step 2, to identify D, the D we have here is minus 1. So therefore D is equal to minus 1. The next one, step 3. Step 3 is that we have to find all the factors of D. So all the factors of D. So we have minus 1. So we're looking for all numbers that you're going to multiply. That is going to give us what? Minus 1. All right. All right. So all the numbers that we're going to multiply, that will give us minus 1. So we have factors of minus 1. So we're going to look for what are the factors of minus 1. So what numbers? So we have 1 times minus 1 will give us minus 1, okay? So no other number you can multiply. So the factors for this now is going to be 1 and minus 1. So that is 2 factors for this. Then the next one we're going to do is step 4. All right? So step 4, we then have to plug in each of these factors, okay? Into the equation to see which of them is going to give us 0. So basically, we're applying the factor theorem here, okay? So let's go. So we're having this. So we have 1 and minus 1. So let us try 1. So if x is equal to 1, plug it here. So we're going to have 1 cubed minus 3, 1 squared. So basically, anywhere you see x, you put 1. Plus 3 into bracket 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. 1 minus 1. Okay. So now when you press this in your calculator, you will see that the answer you're going to get will be what? 0. So therefore, we can now say x is equal to 1 is a factor for this. Now we'll go to step 5. So step 5 is that we then have to rewrite the factor from step 4 by taking the value to the side of x. So we have to then rewrite. So we have step 5. We have x is equal to 1. So you take 1 to meet x there. So therefore, we have x minus 1. So that means the factor we are having here is x minus 1. Now, when we're done with that, so we've gotten the first one. The second one is, to get the second one, we have to go to step 6, where we have to divide the original question with the answer from step 5 using long division. So we're going to do that. Step 6. So using long division. So we have that. So we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. So we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. And we have x minus 1. Are you seeing it? So there are no missing terms, so we're fine. So we have x in x cubed will give you x squared. X squared times this will give you x cubed minus x squared. Okay, x cubed, x squared times x cubed will give you x cubed. X squared times minus 1 will give you minus x squared. Then you subtract. X cubed minus x cubed will give you 0. Minus 3 minus minus. So this will give you plus. So it will be minus 2x squared. Okay, because it's going to become minus 3x squared plus x squared. So it'll give you minus 2x squared. Then we'll bring down these values we have here. We're going to have 3x and we're going to have minus 1. x in minus 2x squared will give you minus 2x. You multiply, it's going to give you minus 2x squared plus 2x. Okay? You subtract as well. This will give you 0. So 3 plus 3x minus plus 2x. And that will give us x minus 1. X in x will give us plus 1. And you multiply, it will give you x minus 1. And it will give you 0 and 0. So as you can see, I told you that the remainder after the long division must be 0. Okay? And the quotient will be quadratic. So let's go and check this. You can see the remainder we had was 0. And the quotient is also quadratic. So that means we can then say x minus 1, right, multiplied by x squared minus 2x plus 1. This 2 is going to give us x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. Okay? And that is that for that. All right, so let's go to step 7 now. Okay? Let's go to step 7. So step 7, the next thing we have to do, we have to then factorize the quotient using any of the previously discussed factorization method, all right? We want to factorize the quotient. The quotient we had here was x squared minus 2x plus 1, all right? So this is a is equal to 1, all right? So we're going to look for two numbers that when you multiply, it's going to give us 1. And when you add them, that number is going to give us minus 2. And it's going to be minus 1 and minus 1, all right? Because minus 1 times minus 1 will give us 1, and minus 1 plus minus 1 will give us minus 2. So it's going to be x minus 1 and x minus 1. So step 8, okay, step 8, we then have to then what? Combine the answer from step 7 and step 5. So step 5, we had x plus 1. And here we're having x minus 1. So it's going to become x plus 1. Oh, sorry, x minus 1. So we're going to have x minus 1. Then we'll combine the answer we have here is x minus 1, x minus 1. So is this answer from step 5? This is the x minus 1 we're using. The x minus 1, then the x minus 1, x minus 1, or we can write it as x minus 1 all cubed, all right? That is it. But if you were told to solve this, it's another different case. If you're told to solve this, what you get is different. So that means here you're going to have x minus 1. You then have to equate it to 0. So therefore, x will be equal to what? 1, 3 times. Okay? So you can see x is equal to 1, 3 times. And that will be the answer for that. Okay, and that will be that. I hope you had the same answer like I did. Please don't forget when you're solving this, just make sure you follow the rules. Try to make sure you understand this method. This is the most widely used method for factorizing or solving cubic function. All right. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize or solve cubic functions using the KX method. So the next method I'm going to talk about is how do you factorize or you solve cubic equation using KX method, and that is the next one we'll do, all right? So I will see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like, share, or comment, or subscribe. And also don't forget to click the notification bell after subscribing so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. All right, see you soon.